Greetings, good morning, and welcome to Mind the Moment. This, my friends, is our coffee house in the cloud, a place to come together, build community, get centered, and find out just what the present moment has to present to us. It is September 22nd, 2020, the autumnal equinox. This is also the first coffee house session we've had the chance to hold since the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg this past Friday. Ginsburg left behind an awesome and intricate legacy, which included a message about never losing sight of the humanity of those with whom you disagree. Many folks may know that Ginsburg maintained a seemingly paradoxical friendship with one of her main sparring partners on the Supreme Court, the late Antonin Scalia, whom Ginsburg referred to, with no hint of facetiousness, as her best buddy. This friendship ceases to seem paradoxical when one adopts Ginsburg's lens of recognizing that we are stronger when we are willing to hear and consider the opinions of even those individuals with whom we seem preordained to disagree. Ginsburg once said, quote, "When I wrote the majority opinion for the court and received a Scalia dissent, the opinion I ultimately released was notably better than my initial circulation. Justice Scalia nailed all the weak spots and gave me just what I needed to strengthen the majority opinion," end quote. In honor and celebration of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I hope to personally maintain the strength to listen deeply to the opinions of others, knowing that doing so will not poison or invalidate my own beliefs, but much in the manner of running into the wind, only allow those beliefs to become leaner, stronger, and more resilient. I'm John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's mindfulness program. Joining me today is someone who always makes me feel like I have the wind at my back and sunshine on my shoulder. It's Rebecca Wing, licensed clinical professional counselor, longtime teacher of mindfulness, and founder of the Mindfulness Retreat Center of Maine. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, John. Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to be with you this morning. Happy
Rebecca,
fall.
Let me begin by asking you, what is the most important piece of advice you received when you first started meditating?
I would say on a very specific sort of Buddhist psychology slant that I was in when I first started 30 years ago meditating was the instruction that I am not my thoughts. That was for me, the most mind-blowing and revelatory experience. First learning how to meditate, for sure. Yes.
Okay, we're going to dig into that a little bit more. And in just a moment, I'll also be inviting Rebecca to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation. After that, we'll shift into some Q&A where we hope to have your help. So take a moment, if you will, and open up the chat box, which you will find at the bottom of your screen. Please type in any questions or comments you have at any time. As a way to get us started, Rebecca, is there anything you'd like to check in with folks about here at the top of the session?
Well, I think along that line, it would be good to sort of explore the possibility that, what would it be like to unhook from our thoughts? What would it be like to recognize them as passing events that don't define who we are? What would that be like going through our day, noticing thoughts rise and fall, without clinging to them and over-identifying with them?
Okay, so let me rephrase that. So for folks at home, what would it be like to not feel like, I'll put it this way, to not feel like your thoughts were controlling you? What would that feel like? Or what would that be like to act and live in that way? All right, so while folks are considering and typing, please know how grateful we are that you've taken the time to be with us and with each other this morning. Keep in mind that Rebecca and I are going to be the only ones who can actually see what you're typing, and if we don't have a chance to read your particular question or comment out loud, but please know that we do read and value them all. And as we close, which will be right around 9 a.m., I'll make note of some other ways that you can keep in touch with us as well. So someone is saying that would be a huge success for me. Yes, a comment that is it is a hard thing to imagine, right? Somebody says it would allow me to consider others' feelings and thoughts more closely. Someone says they would find it to be calming. Someone says they would be able to be more responsive to the present moment. Fantastic. I mean, these are great thoughts.
And I want to encourage everybody to recognize that that's a practice, right? That each moment we can experiment with that and get curious about it. And slowly over time, we just get more familiar with that idea of becoming unhooked from those thoughts. Yeah.
And I like that image of becoming unhooked.
Mm-hmm.
So Rebecca, I want to take advantage today of your expertise, not only as a guider of meditations, but also as a licensed clinical professional counselor, by picking your brain about one of the things that I personally had a hard time grasping when I first started meditating. So here in the West, for at least the last 100 years, we've been taught to think about thinking in a particular way. When a thought arises in the mind, you were touching on this, especially if it's a troubling thought, it's often the case that we're encouraged to ask, where did this thought come from? Why am I having this thought? What does it mean? Is it because of something that happened to me in my childhood? But I'm gathering this kind of thinking about thinking is not what we're trying to accomplish in mindfulness practice. So as a lead-in to your meditation this morning, I'm wondering if you might say a few words about how relating to thoughts in the mindfulness tradition is different than relating to thoughts in a more analytical tradition.
More of the Western psychology versus the Buddhist psychology, really is what we're talking about, the difference. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the thing that I just want to state right up front, being a mental health counselor and working as a specialist in mindfulness meditation with clients that have anxiety, depression, and other challenges in their lives, one of the things that strikes me the most is that I don't think that the Western and the Eastern philosophies are mutually exclusive, especially for the Western mind. So yes, it is very helpful to recognize that thoughts really are passing events. And it's also very important to understand at times, doing a little bit of personal growth work around where did those thoughts that arise in me, I think of them more as beliefs, those foundational beliefs that we carry frequently from our family of origin that have given us a belief structure that causes us suffering. And so that work is the Western psychology. That is, how do I, first off, uncover what that belief might be, or more than one of those beliefs? What are they? What was it in my family of origin that contributed to it? And then what is it that I would rather believe if that old negative belief doesn't work for me anymore? So that's that aspect of inquiry around our thoughts and where they came from. Absolutely, in my opinion, absolutely fundamental. Because a lot of times those beliefs are unconscious. We don't even realize we're walking around with a belief structure. We just think that we think what we think. And so much of the challenge then is, in the mindfulness Eastern approach is, okay, now when I see and recognize how in my body that belief feels, what I say when I'm stuck in that belief, that I actually have another choice, that I can craft another way of being that allows me to unhook from those old beliefs, so that I'm less likely to respond or react unconsciously from those beliefs, and instead make an effort to respond consciously. Not mutually exclusive.
That's
and
great.
You know, one of the biggest aspects, I think, of personal growth work is that sometimes it gets too slogged down into this whole, why am I thinking what I'm thinking? There's something wrong with me. Ultimately, I should be doing something different. I don't know why I'm so messed up. And all those qualities, that gets sort of over identified with the beliefs and the thought patterns. So we have to do the dance between inquiry, letting go, and then being mindfully present. So there's this back and forth between the two. They really aren't mutually exclusive. Yeah. And the only other thing, I'll just say one more thing around that, because this is the thing that strikes me the most about, okay, so let's say we're sitting in meditation and we're reflecting something that happened yesterday, and we're going deep into this sort of wondering, why did I say that? I don't even understand why I said that. I feel terrible that I said that. What's wrong with me? There's something wrong with people. People don't like people who say that kind of thing. And then we have to move into not necessarily analyzing the thought or even where it came from, but instead facing the feeling that comes up around it. So now I'm sitting and I'm feeling the experience of the thing that went on yesterday. I'm noticing the sensation of the emotion I'm having in my body and my mind, and I'm sitting with it. I'm literally just breathing with it, sitting with it, acknowledging it, and waiting. And the interesting thing is that when we wait and be with these emotions, they liberate or they change, right? They don't stay with us. So in other words, what I was thinking yesterday, and maybe even struggling with yesterday, I'm not struggling with now. And so in meditation practice, we get more and more able to just be with, okay, let's just sit with this for a second. This is obviously taking up a lot of brain space with me right now. Can I feel it? Can I face it? Can I recognize it, acknowledge it, and wait? And so that's the beauty of inquiry within the Western psychology field, and then mindfulness and allowing those thoughts and feelings eventually to liberate, self-liberate. They change, they go away. And so we can get more understanding that they are two pillars in a lot of ways of personal growth.
Well, I think that's actually a great segue then to actually doing a little bit of meditation and seeing
That's
how
good.
how this looks in practice.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is something called sky-like mind practice, and this is a pretty advanced practice, but I'm going to give you sort of a taste of it. So what you want to do is find your seat, and you really want to see if you can allow the back to be a little bit off the chair, because we're just going to see how much we can sit in an upright posture. So think of your spine as being long. And let's just make the decision that we don't need to figure anything out right now. And I'm going to ask you to sit with dignity. Bring your best self to your posture and to your state of mind. Friendliness to self in this moment. And then explore where in your body you might settle this morning. Relaxing into this upright, dignified posture. Relax. And then find your breath, whatever it's doing this morning. Attend with awareness to the rise and fall of breathing this morning. And then I'm going to ask you to see if you can attend to the sounds around you, any sensorial experience of sound, while also noticing the rise and fall of breath. Now we add another phenomenon, that of body sensation. Notice your body sitting in the chair, the breath, and the rising and falling of sounds. Body, breath, and sounds. Relax now further into imagining that your mind is like a bright blue, spacious sky, and that any sound, physical sensation, the sense of the breath, any emotion or thought is rising up out of that sky-like broad, spacious awareness Relax into noticing the rising and falling of all phenomenon. Let go. Each thought, no different than any other phenomenon. The thought comes like a cloud and then is gone, replaced with sound, emotion, sensation, breath. Allow all phenomenon to come and go in that broad, spacious, relaxed awareness. You may notice boredom, fatigue, frustration. Again, even emotions are passing events. Try one more time. Settle in. Expand your awareness to all phenomenon. Open up as far as you can. Take it all in, watching things rise and fall. As we move towards the end of the practice, drop the form of it and just see if you can allow yourself to rest. Just resting. And I'd like to offer a little affirmation for the day. On this day, may I notice the rising and falling of my thoughts and emotions as passing clouds in the broad, spacious awareness of my own aware, conscious mind. May I embody in moments of attentiveness that spacious quality so that any clinging to thoughts, opinions, emotions can be given room to rise and fall within that blue sky. And when you're ready, perhaps drawing a deeper breath back into the body, moving the hands and feet, maybe a little stretch as we end the practice.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. Now, let me begin by saying that I want to make sure everyone watching feels very welcome, even encouraged to ask Rebecca any questions you may have using the chat box. But while you're doing so, thinking and typing, let me get us rolling here. Rebecca, I wanted to actually engage with you a little bit about this particular practice. So for folks who are maybe more used to a meditation practice where you're concentrating on your breath for 10 minutes, this might seem a little bit different. Can you talk a little bit about how the narrative or the structure of the practice, of this particular practice, is meant to perhaps have a particular outcome or orient our engagement with our thoughts in a different way than perhaps a more, not basic, but a more
fundamental.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it is like I said, it is more of an advanced practice, but actually what the thing that strikes me the most about Sky-like mind practice is that it asks us to imagine. And, you know, the imagination is an amazing thing. When you start to really sort of consider that you could actually sit with sort of this broader awareness of everything that's arising. Because of course, when you're focusing on your breath only, your body's there, the sounds around you are there, there are emotions that come and go as well as thoughts. So there's so much going on. And so this practice is sort of encouraging us to consider that, you know, along with single pointed focus, anchoring on just one thing, we can also gain more skill at noticing, well, for lack of a better term, all things, which of course is pretty high aspiration. And what you might have noticed when you were doing the practice is that you might have noticed a sound, and then noticing yourself in the chair, and then aware of a thought, and then aware of the breath, and it would kind of come and go into these sort of, and that's what we're working at learning how to do, is recognizing that each rising phenomenon, not just the thoughts, but everything else that's within us and around us, is coming and going, kind of like bubbles. You're there and then pop, they're gone. And so ultimately, the practice itself is sort of helping us, for lack of a better word, exercise that part of the brain that actually can be simultaneously aware of more than one thing. And I think that one of the biggest instructions around Sky-like mind practice is to relax, because if we're over striving and try, okay, sound, emotion, thought, you know, it becomes very sort of, I don't know, a lot of right angles. But what we're thinking of it more is just sort of this rising and falling quality, which does take a lot more sort of relaxed approach to it all. Yeah.
Do you think there's is there a type of situation where one might want to
Hold on. Mocha wants to say good morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Mocha. She's my little girl. Okay, sorry, John.
No, that's it's always animals and children are welcome to this. I was going to ask if this particular practice, if you would recommend it for a type of situation, like if somebody is if their mind is sort of going in these directions, or if they are feeling a particular way, then maybe this would be a better practice or not as good a practice at that moment.
What I would say is, instead of thinking of it as more applicable to situations, think of it as a nice way to close a meditation. So in other words, if you're really working very specifically around following the breath, great. And then take the last 3 minutes to just broaden your attention to all things, right? So that it is, in a sense, the balancing the two. Specific anchoring a focus, and then, I always think of sky like mind as like, just think of your consciousness as like a giant snow globe. So it's big. Your conscious awareness is big. It's just that your mind tends to filter out what it doesn't want to pay attention to. So what we're doing now is, with this broad sort of big globe of awareness, any of the snowflakes that are inside it, we can actually tend to and then watch them dissipate, rising and falling. So it's just a really nice way to end a meditation, because it gives you another way to exercise the power of your concentration and your consciousness.
Yeah, and I earlier you used the analogy of a dance, and I'm enjoying pulling that into here as well, with this idea of going back and forth between a more broad awareness and a more centered awareness. And then I guess the trick is in knowing when to change partners.
Yeah. So that's why sometimes it's just nice to do it at the end, because then you can kind of release after going into the more single pointedness. Yeah, it's a good way to close a meditation. Yeah.
So Rebecca, we're getting a little bit short on time. I did want to ask you something, because it's possible that I won't have a chance to speak with you again for several weeks, and it's beginning to become a little bit of a stressful time in our history for folks who were enjoying the particular the work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her passing is probably feels very disruptive. It's a time when a lot of children are going back to school. As I mentioned, there's a grade school across the street, and kids are being let back in. Do you have any advice for folks just to help them perhaps deal with any feelings of anxiety that might be arising at this time?
Yeah. So we're back to facing and feeling emotion. So, it's very interesting. I find I'm just going to be very, very instructive today. For some reason, I feel instructive. Here's what I would suggest. If you're having a hard time, when you sit in your practice, first sit with whatever emotion you're experiencing. Really allow yourself to feel it. We do a lot of sort of pushing away of emotion, and then it kind of comes out in weird ways with our partner or our kids or our coworkers, because we're trying to keep a cap on the emotion. Meditation practice can really give us some opportunity to just sit with it. And then once we sit with it and soften and settle into our body and feel like, oh God, I'm just really anxious right now. And I'm feeling really hopeless, or whatever emotion, I'm naming the emotion. And then see if we can relax and soften into that posture of dignity. And then move into the breath and watch the rise and fall of the breath. And then move into spacious sky-like mind. So just as I've said before, the Western psychology is important to acknowledge emotion. Be with it, experience it, acknowledge it, feel it, and then drop into more of that concentrating on the breath, and then more spaciously. Because really, we can do all of that. We can do all of that. We can make room for emotion, and we can drop the emotion or move towards something other than the emotion. But really, we have to face it and feel it first.
Wow.
Right?
This is, I love this message. You can have it all as long as you're willing to receive, I suppose.
Yeah, and practice.
Receive and practice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. So I'm going to have to move us a little bit towards the close, or a little bit more towards the close.
My pleasure.
So we'll be back with you every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Now you can find the links to these sessions, other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. If you have any questions for our experts that we did not get to here, or if you think of any later on in the week, please send them to askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org, or feel free to leave me a voicemail at 617-509-7047. Now, we'd love for you to check out the free resources around mindfulness and pain management, which we're offering through a partnership with Mindful Magazine. Those resources can be found at mindful.org/pain. Now, you can see everything we've been up to lately by navigating to our Facebook page, facebook.com/mindthemoment. And you can rewatch this session, older sessions, introductory sessions, not to mention interviews that we conducted with mindfulness researchers on our YouTube page, youtube.com/mindthemoment. Rebecca, as always, thank you so much for your guidance this morning. A closing question for you. If you had a theme song for your mindfulness practice this week, what would it be?
Oh, it would be Blue Sky by Irving Berlin, sung by Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh, very good. I told you I was going to ask you which who.
Yeah. Blue Sky, because, sky like mine. So definitely check it out. It's a great song.
I love that. For my own part, I'm going to choose the aria "We Are Different, We Are One" from one of the most unlikely operas of all time, Scalia Ginsburg by Derek Wang, which premiered in 2015 and imagines a series of duets between Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you soon. And please do have a momentous day.